Hello to everyone. It's my pleasure to add to this session by leading you through a conceptual model we have recently developed. A conceptual model to overview microplastic persistence and environmental impact of biodegradable and non-biodegradable polymers. First, I like to set the scene for it. The framework is that we implement the principles of the waste hierarchy. However, even if all measures have been taken, we need solutions for the rest, which will still end up in the environment. I draw now your attention to three categories we group of experts identified for the European Commission. First category is products which have a high potential of loss to the environment and will never be recollected. This is a fish attracting device floating in the open ocean. About half of the FDAs per year are not found again and so accumulating as persistent materials in the oceans. Second category, unavoidable release to the environment, which will never be recollected. By simply using a product, we lose parts by abrasion. Here, the example of a wet wipe in a glass of water, we shake briefly, and you can see the loss of uncountable fibers. Or the example of a pruning fleece losing fibers during its use by abrasion. Also, soluble polymers are an unavoidable release to the environment. Here examples from washing agencies or foliar adhesives as used, for example, in agriculture. Third category, applications we put intentionally to the environment and which are not meant to be recollected. Here, the example of a geotextile to stabilize the shoreline until natural vegetation is regrown. Or a mulch film where recollection is not foreseen, or fertilizer, seed coatings where recollection is even impossible. Meanwhile, we have more categories identified, for example, for composting. Here, the example of binders and clips, which will be collected with the plants after harvest to be industrially composted with the plants. To summarize this introduction, as we speak, accumulation of persistent plastics in the environment continues, with varying impacts on organisms, ecosystems, and ourselves. The phenomenon has been known for decades and is becoming increasingly widespread, and so the following question gets more attention. Is environmental biodegradation a solution for the problem of this pollution? We think it can be a solution for specific applications and potentially even as last option for unwanted leakage, as you see it here in this beach on an Asian tropical island. This in turn triggers the need for strategies, schemes, overviews, criteria, and so on, and it triggered also the need for a policy framework, resulting in 2022 in the communication on bio-based, biodegradable, and compostable plastics to the European Commission, to its Parliament, Council, and to several committees. Here I would like to draw the attention to two topics which are most of relevance in this aspect. The reduction of persistent plastic to the environment is actually seen as a benefit. And second, supporting actions towards a substitution with biodegradable plastics and polymers are useful and should be applied. To stay structured and focused during these actions, we use our overarching mind map. I like to guide you through now. So for materials potentially ending up in the environment and cannot be recollected, we need to use polymers which are biodegradable in the environment and at the same time also fulfill the needed functionality. The Europe Commission policy framework is an important guideline saying we need to show proof and report on how long does it actually take, weeks, months or years, specify the test conditions, for example marine, freshwater or soil conditions, and show minimal harm to organisms and ecosystems. To fulfill the requests, we need testing schemes and tests resulting in data. Before going into deeper into this concept, I like to use the informative poster compiled by the Nova Institute, giving an overview on biodegradable polymers in various environments. I use this illustration for 3 aspects of relevance here. The speed of biodegradation depends on the material, their structural formula and grade. Here 2 examples. It further depends on the environmental conditions where they end up. For example, the marine environment, freshwater soil or home composting landfill and so on. Pointed out by the blue marked environments, the illustration shows in which end of life option the biodegradable polymer degrades faster. It also means that they fulfill an established standard. For the scenarios highlighted in gray, it does not mean that the polymers do not biodegrade, they just take longer than the standards specify. And or it has not been shown yet using a standard. That biodegradation is continuing is crucial for the environment, as otherwise the accumulation of persistent microplastic affecting the food chain, here illustrated by plankton organisms with microplastic ingested. Both views are useful for policy and further innovative developments. If available, we use standard test methods which are in place or adapt them or even develop new ones if they are not in place yet. First, we do prove biodegradability by using biodegradability tests in optimized conditions using respirometers. To report actually how long it takes, we use disintegration tests applying more environmentally relevant conditions in simulation tests in tanks or even in field conditions. To check for minimal harm, we do ecotox tests, ideally on 3 trophic levels and potentially on ecosystem level. The assessed data can then be used in evaluation schemes. Here we are supporting the development to integrate biodegradation data into schemes like product environmental footprint via LCA, the scheme supported and pushed by the European Commission. Furthermore, data can then even be used for certification, also supported by the EC framework. Overall seen, we have made good progress in the last years, while we still encounter quite some confusion also at the beginning or start of the mind map. What do I mean by this? The main question to answer first, what is the basis for integrating and combining functionality and environmental biodegradable polymers in the concept of circular, safe and sustainable by design? To answer this in a structured way, we developed this model to make a first general assessment through which I will now lead you. It is a simplified summary diagram comparing different lifetimes of biodegradable and non-biodegradable materials. It is structured in the categories of persistence, degradation, dispersal, accumulation, and impact. Persistence is the overarching determinant for the other categories. Non-biodegradable materials are highly persistent in the environment. Biodegradable materials are chemically hydrolyzed and or directly biodegraded in the environment and have therefore a lower persistence, which is lower the higher the biodegradation rate is. As a consequence of physical fragmentation, non-biodegradable materials form persistent micro and nanoplastics. Biodegradables will form transit micro and nanoplastics until they eventually fully mineralized and only carbon dioxide and methane and biomass remains. The mineralization rate determines the following categories. Dispersal is limited by their lifetime, and accumulation is counteracted by biodegradation until complete mineralization. Due to their stability, the dispersal of non-biodegradable materials is high and will pass transitory compartments and accumulate in their final sinks, for example, the deep sea. Due to their persistence, their impact is long-lasting and leading to chronic effects. For biodegradable polymers, the long-term impact is reduced due to their gradual disappearance out of the system. The immediate physical impact causing acute effects is the same for non-biodegradable as for biodegradable materials. Excluding further processing of the material and non-intentionally added substances, the immediate chemical impact of neat non-biodegradable materials as such are rather inert and non-toxic, as well as are biodegradable polymers. However, through the process of biodegradation, biodegradable polymers become part of the natural matter cycle. So biodegradation, for example, consumes oxygen. Intermediates can serve as nutrition to some and can be irritant to other microorganisms. A specialty of biodegradables is that the moment the presence is no longer given, the affected organisms and ecosystem can return to its pre-disturbance state. It means that it will recover if the effect was not fatal, of course. So having fate and impact structured, we can now use it for categorizing biodegradable materials. We use the logarithmic scale for the timeline of biodegradation and expected range of environmental lifetime of different materials. Biodegradation times are specific for the material form and the environmental conditions as introduced before. Here are 4 examples for fast biodegradation, which means within months and weeks. Note the different materials, forms, and also environmental conditions. Now please follow the PHB which has been exposed on the sea floor on a tropical island. It took 108 days whereas in the Mediterranean Sea, on a sea floor, it took some years, and also in a beach scenario. Interesting here also the other materials like PBSET or PLA. Here the lifetimes on a Mediterranean seafloor and a marine tropical seafloor. Biodegradation rates and lifetimes are specific and help us choosing the material for a certain application. For example, a textile to stabilize the soil for maybe 3 or 5 years until natural vegetation has taken over should be from a slow biodegrading material. On the other hand, a wet wipe, which has no use after 10 seconds and lost countless fibers, should be from a fast biodegrading material. Summarizing this model, we see that the plastic stability determines its environmental fate and impact by its presence. This is a helpful tool to overview, to select the polymer material that meets the required functionality with minimum possible impact at the same time. This brings me back to our overarching mind map, closing the loop further. If you need support in your work wherever it is in this cycle, please come back to us. I will now close with 2 examples how to work along this mind map. Rebiolution is an EU-funded project where a consortium of 9 integrates aims for a novel, fully bio-based, biodegradable, actually also compostable, recyclable polyester blend for food packaging and also for mulch film. It is a very good example for integrating the end-of-life options at the development level of the material. What we did is at the beginning of the project, the monomer selection was done based on functionality and biodegradation data at the same time, and screening tests were used to select for the best candidates. With the prototypes, we test now to prove the biodegradability, to assess the lifetime, to assess the ecotoxicology, and then fuel the data back into the evaluation tool of LCA, and if data are suitable, we also go for certification. It's a great project implementing the circular, safe, and sustainable by design, achieving the wanted functionality and reduction of pollution. The second project I like to emphasize here is called AgriRe Plus, which stands for the reduction of the plastic footprint in agriculture. We just started and will run for 4 years, inviting you to become a partner, providing biodegradable materials we could show and train farmers on, and or even develop with you together new materials and products. After all, we will publish a list of applications in forums of agricultural associations, in forum along the value chain, including regulation bodies and NGOs, on which applications are to use how, and give recommendations for the future needs. With that, I like to close and thank all our collaborators and partners and clients supporting this work, and encourage you to contact us for further exchange and potential cooperation and collaboration. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your attention, and best greetings from Europe.